Hello. I just did a YouTube on how I cracked the mystery of the tarot, and I was going into a lot about myself and my experiences in the past and things. And I don't usually talk about that because it's nothing to do with the tarot cards. But I wanted to go into this because I thought I would go a little bit more into that because I think it will help paint a picture of what we're doing with the cards from a different slant. Instead of talking about these are the tarot cards, this is why they work, this is how they're used, talking about other things in life, another example that shows this same application being used in a way bigger way, or in another way at least. And I was kind of a strange situation when I got involved with the tarot because, for one thing, I was a tradesman, a lithographer. I reproduced artwork and photography for printing, and it was a good trade. And I was in it for all my life. So I was happy with my job. And I wasn't really trying to change jobs, change a different type of job. And then when as things progressed in the printing industry and lithography, pre-press graphic arts, I think they call it now. They had a bunch of names for what I did. And as things progressed, I moved out of the trade and became a sales representative in the business. I knew the business. And that's when I got involved with the advertising agencies, more on a one-to-one basis with them. And I talked about that in the last video I did, about how creativity, just that word, is magic to them. And so I wanted to show some examples of what I was talking about with that. There's one company named Leo Burnett, downtown Chicago. They started in Chicago. And they were pretty much the mecca of advertising agencies when I was in the business. And also back to when I was in the business, when I went into sales, that's when I started going into being a professional reader as well. Sales in the printing industry is a straight commission job. So nobody's expecting me to be at the office 40 hours a week or anything like that. I come in when I want. If I don't bring any work that week, I don't get any money. That's all. They're not paying me. I get a desk, I get an extension on a phone there, box of business cards, and I have a crew of people that I would go to if I bring work in. And that was it. You come in once or twice a week, that's fine. Or you could be there 6 days a week. They don't care. They're have you there to bring work in and go out and find new accounts and things like that. And that's what, so my hours were free. If I wanted to do a party as a reader or something like that, I was able to do that. Just adjust my schedule. But back to Leo Burnett. Like I said, Leo Burnett was a huge, they still are, they're a huge advertising agency. Started downtown Chicago. And they're worldwide now. And we did work for Leo Burnett. And I did not have that account. There was another sales rep who got that work into our company. And but I did have the opportunity to go there and talk with some of those people probably a half a dozen times for different reasons. And getting involved with different projects that we were doing for them. And so I did know a little bit about the place. Plus, I knew a couple of people that worked there. And so I knew about the company. And Leo Burnett, there's a picture of him here I got. Anything I got here is off the internet, so it's open, you know. And if I talk about any stories, they're secondhand. I never heard any, I never met Leo Burnett. I know that through the grapevine These are the stories I've heard or I've read them on the internet. So I can't take them as gospel, but I'm pretty much sure that they're pretty true. Anyway, he started out in the 40s, I think. And very creative genius. And I'd like to talk about what was done with that company and how they got there to show you how we're doing the same thing here. And now today, psychology just calls it a creative thinking technique. And you may be able to relate better to it by seeing it and saying, oh, okay, I can see how you're relating these two things and how this worked so well over here in a huge project where we're doing it with cards on the table. And Leo Burnett had, like I said, he was a creative genius. And he had a box on his office table, on his desk. And it was an idea box. And if he came across something on a magazine or something hit him as a word, like the word finicky, finicky, I like that word. He would write it down on a piece of paper, throw that piece of paper in his box. Or if he went through a magazine and he sees a picture of an elf, let's say, he would cut that picture out and throw that picture of that elf in his box. So he had a box of ideas here that he doesn't know what he's going to do with. Maybe nothing, but they were there. And when he did, Leo Burnett was responsible for, if a lot of you might remember, 9 Lives cat food, Morris the cat. A lot of you won't know who that was, but it was a big commercial. Everybody knew Morris the cat on TV. They loved the commercials. And he was doing the account for 9 Lives cat food, Leo Burnett. They were doing advertising for them, TV commercials and print and everything else. And when he was trying to figure out what he's going to do with this, they ended up getting a rescue cat. This cat was on death row. And here's a picture of Morris. Became one of the most famous cats on everybody knew who Morris was. And they would have this same cat all the time in the commercial, and a voice of a man narrating or saying as if Morris was talking. It was his what this cat is thinking. This man's voice would be there. And Morris was known as the finicky cat. So if Leo Burnett was looking for ideas on what he's going to do to promote this cat food, 9 Lives, he might have gone into that box of ideas and picked out the word finicky in there and said, okay, well, you figure cat food, you're going to want to have commercials where all these cats love this food, and all these cats are eating the food, and everybody loves it. Well, that's pretty typical. But he's going to come up with this finicky cat, one special cat, and you're going to name him Morris. And Morris was a finicky cat, and Morris ate 9 Lives. Now, I don't know if that's how he came up with the finicky cat idea, but it very well could have been. But he did that with a lot of things. So a random thing out of his box of ideas to be associated with this new project he's working on, this cat food called 9 Lives. How is he going to do it? And take an association between this randomness and what he's working on. That's creative. And that's called conceptual blending today. We didn't have a name for it back then. We knew what it was, but it wasn't really official. But genius minds think that way. Their eyes are open to things, and they take things and compare them with what they need here. Well, maybe this will help me. Maybe this will help me. Well, he had this box of ideas on his desk, reaching in that box and make an association between this random idea and what he's looking into. Today, we know the power of that technique in your being innovative, being creative, finding ideas we never saw before. He did ads for Keebler cookies, and everybody knows there's elves with Keebler cookies. He might have taken a picture of an elf out of that box and said, "Okay, I'm gonna have these cookies made by elves." Well, it worked. Who would have thought that? It's a gimmick, and it worked. He was involved with McDonald's, if I remember right. Another one he was involved with was Philip Morris, the Marlboro Man. That was Leo Burnett. Huge, huge thing. Marlboro was a woman's cigarette, but it had a filter on it. And this is the story I heard anyway. And so Marlboro, Philip Morris, wanted to have it where men smoke these cigarettes too. And they went to Philip Morris. Now, he might have had a cowboy in that box of ideas and say, well, let's make it a cowboy thing here. So this box of ideas was one of the ways he came up with new ideas. Morris the cat, by the way, ended up being so well known, so important to that company. I think the cat lived to be 17 years old. And every year they had a birthday for that cat. This is what I heard anyway. And what they did is the board of directors of Leo Burnett would actually have Morris the cat sitting at the head of the board of directors for his birthday. And they would do a party for him. But it takes things that just randomly and work with it and find and dig deeper with it is how new ideas are found. Some randomness. It has to be random. Like something out of that box in Leo Burnett. That box of stuff was just a worthless box of things, ideas. But what he came up with was priceless. Now Leo Burnett has about 9,000 people working for it. They are worldwide, one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world. And he was the one who started it all with associating randomness to his ideas for advertising. Tony the Tiger, I think. He did Coca-Cola. He did I'm sure he was I think he was involved with Kraft's Foods, probably Miller Brewing too, because if he was involved with Philip Morris, the Marlboro Man, Philip Morris owns Kraft's Foods. And they also own Miller Brewing, so they're all three of the same people. And I know he's involved with Kellogg's. One of the stories is when he was first starting out, came to Chicago, and he wanted to open up this advertising company. And he got one of the major newspapers, either the Sun-Times or Chicago Tribune, to do a press release on him. And they had a reporter come out and talk with him. And this is Leo Burnett here. And Leo Burnett was somebody who was no nonsense. He didn't care what he looked like, really. He cared about what he's doing. And so I guess he usually had his sport jacket was usually not perfect. And his looks were a little bit disshuffled, he was a little bit off. And I guess this reporter wasn't impressed with him. So they put in the ad that the column that they did about this new company, Leo Burnett. this reporter said that Leo Burnett would be better off selling apples on the street than to try to be an advertising agency. It was a terrible review. He wasn't impressed with Leo Burnett. And Leo Burnett Advertising has a skyscraper down on Michigan Avenue, Randolph and Michigan downtown, if that's where they're still at. I don't know how many floors are on that thing, but and they probably rent a lot of it to other businesses, but wherever part of that building is Leo Burnett, whatever parts that they use, those hallways and those lobbies, to this day, every day, fresh baskets of apples are put in there for the public. Anybody who comes there, grab an apple. That's how he thought. And I think that that's just cool. When he was first starting out, he went to up in Minnesota to a canning company called Minnesota Valley Canning Company, and they canned produce, and they wanted to advertise, and so they interviewed about a half a dozen advertising agencies, and Leo Burnett was one of them, and he went there himself for this. He was just starting out. And the guy who owned the Minnesota Valley Canning Company was a giant guy. He was a huge guy. And so after they were through interviewing all these people, the staff of them, went to the owner and said, well, who do you want to go with to do this? And this giant guy says, whoever that little guy with the crumpled up sport jacket, I like him. Well, that was Leo Burnett. So Leo Burnett got the account, and he found out from the people at the Minnesota Valley Canning Company that that's what they called him, the short little guy with the crumpled up sport jacket. And so when he did his campaign for what this advertising was going to be, he came up with the Jolly Green Giant, because this guy was so a giant guy. And it was from the Minnesota Valley Canning Company, the giant from the valley, if you know the song. And they had to go with the Jolly Green Giant because they didn't want a big monster giant eating vegetables. They wanted to be scary, so they had to be a Jolly Green Giant to not be a scary thing. And you see where that went. So getting creative, and like I said, a lot of his ideas, a lot of creative people, what they get their ideas is randomness. They're looking for randomness because it brings you out of your thinking, and it puts you in a way you got to use your imagination now. But this person, Leo Burnett, amazing person. When I heard he had that box on his desk, and he would pick out a random thing that he just thought was something interesting when he put it in there. I said, this I may have used someday. And he put it in that box. And when he's looking for ideas, he'd reach in that box and see what comes up. So the story of Leo Burnett Advertising, as far as what I know, which is all second-rate stuff, I don't really know Leo Burnett Advertising that well. I know it because I was in the trades, and I know how these people think, and I know how they look for randomness, which is why their eyes are usually open to the world around them. And that's what Da Vinci said. He says, to get creative, open your eyes to nature. Well, now you could say open your eyes to the world around you. And we have a lot of randomness around us we can use. So you have somebody here who used random stimulus to find ideas that made him a worldwide success. You see the power of that. That's conceptual blending. Today, that's what it's known as. And we're doing the same thing when we take a random tarot card and we place it with our question. of whatever we're looking into. Well, how am I going to market this cat food? Let me check the box. How am I going to answer your question? You're sitting across from me. Let me check the cards. What randomness is coming up here? What ideas am I going to get from this random card and see it in ways that are going to fit to your question in a way that we never thought of before? So like I said, maybe I was fortunate in a way to be involved with not just tarot cards, but involved with another aspect of life that was very creative. And I dealt a lot with those people for 10 years. And maybe that's what helped me see it from a different slight angle when I'm talking about the tarot. We still don't know anything about psychic awareness, but we do know one thing. When you apply this creative thinking application called the card reading or conceptual blending, whatever you want to call it, you are opening up the doors of that psychic side of your mind. Today's psychology calls this application conceptual blending, a creative thinking technique known as conceptual blending, the most basic creative thinking technique we know of, that we do. Tarot readings are exactly the same. The only difference is now psychology explains why it works, where tarot sources don't know why it works. Now we do know why. And that's a big plus. Anyway, I hope you like this. May 9th, next tarot Zoom gathering, Tuesday, 12 o'clock Chicago time. Go to tarotmaps.com. Down below, you'll see the link, along with links to my books on Amazon. Keep throwing cards. We'll talk soon. Bye.